Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them, and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month, and we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN.
Today, we're talking about what?
Terminology.
Well, that sounds exciting.
Does it feel like we're going to go to school?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. We're going to talk about the Latin roots of the terms. Not true.
No, Anita, why don't you lead this discussion?
So, you know how when you're a person on the planet, you tend to think that everybody thinks just like you do?
Yes.
You ever notice that? So, as a widow on the planet, same thing happens. And you think that everybody has the same opinions about you in a lot of different areas. And one thing that I was surprised about was that some people have very strong feelings about words associated with being a widow. For instance, some widows hate the word, drumroll, brrr, widow.
Yes, I've
How do
heard
you
this.
feel about being called a widow, Mel?
Oh, how do I feel? Well, I think that its regular, typical connotation is normally paired with an older female, perhaps a
Mhm.
grandmother, perhaps 85 and older. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of maybe a
So
general
like
consensus.
retirement
So,
age.
yeah. So I actually didn't consider myself a widow when I first found out that Scott died because I just thought it was only for people in the grandmother category. And
Mhm.
then I realized, oh, I am a widow. Hello. And I mean, I'm probably in a small majority, but I get to make it whatever I want. So I never was like, oh, these people call it this, therefore I hate it. But I know that some people do. And like, that's totally cool if that's how you feel. I get it. So I've just decided I'm going to make the word widow mean whatever it means to me.
Mhm.
And there are many flavors of widows, many versions of widows,
Mint chocolate
and
chip
it's also just a word. So for
doesn't
me, the
bother you.
word is neutral, it's a fact, and I'm
Yeah.
cool with it. But not everybody feels this way.
So here's the thing about I agree with you, and I want to push it even a little bit further. In society, like you were saying, the word widow usually brings to mind older people. And so I remember hearing, I think I was at church once and they were talking about how somebody was visiting all the widows. And in my brain, immediately I was like, oh, this person's visiting all of the grandmas or the 85-year-olds or the whatever year olds. And that's what popped into my mind. And so I think in my mind, if we avoid the word widow because it makes us uncomfortable, then we don't help society realize that widows do come in more than one flavor. So if you can be neutral about the word widow, then maybe we expand the definition of widow little by little until when you think of the word widow, you think of you and me and the whole spectrum, people who are younger than us, people who are older than us, all of us. What do you think about that?
Rainbow of widows.
A rainbow of widows, like Skittles.
Yeah.
A Skittles of widows.
Widow Skittles. That's
Widow Skittles.
wonderful.
That sounds like a
Oh,
great idea. But I
TM.
also understand that with the word brings pain because it's a reminder of what you are.
Also, sometimes on forms that you fill out, the only options are married or single, not even widow. And so,
No.
yeah, there's a whole lot that comes with this. And another question that I wanted to ask you about, Anita,
Mhm.
is I know that some people have said, well, I don't call myself a widow because I don't want that to define me.
Mm. This
Now,
is this is true.
that I'm assuming that means to define me negatively. But do you think it could be reversed? Like, what if you are a widow and it's a positive sort of a term?
Okay, let's go back to your form example. So if you're single, does that define your whole life?
No, unless you look at it only in those terms.
Yeah. Are you, if you're married, does that define your whole life? It's certainly, I feel like the widow box is a huge part of my person, of my life, of my experience, but it's not all of me. So I can understand that feeling that it defines you or it makes you vulnerable or makes people think about you only in those terms. But I would say it's similar to being single or to being married in that it is a huge part of your identity, but it doesn't have to define who you are in total.
I
Maybe.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody has different feelings about it. And that's also cool. You
Because
do,
we're Skittles.
yes. One thing that's interesting about words is you brought this up the other day, Anita, and I totally forgot and I had to go look at my Instagram. You were talking about how my Instagram description, it just says Mel Shore, musician, widow, unicorn.
Yes.
And truly, when I think of words like that, they're all just words. Whatever the definition means, actually, whatever the emotion that that definition brings is different for each person.
Right.
Somebody could see musician and think Mel goes out partying with Mick Jagger, or somebody could look at the word musician again and say, oh, she just plays the piano in her house. You know, it could go so many ways.
They could just think you were playing Vivaldi all the time, or they could think that you played with AC/DC.
Yeah. And, you know,
Or,
people have feelings about all of that. There's
or
judgment.
what if they hate unicorns?
Yeah.
We were talking about that because we were talking about how big of a part of your identity is the fact that you've lost your spouse or your partner. And so in your 4 words that you describe yourself as, and I used, in Instagram, people will use, just a few words to describe themselves. Is that one of your words? Is widow, or is it not one of your words? And does that change over time? In the beginning, do you feel like that takes up a huge part of your identity? And then as time moves forward, you have other words that fill a bigger part of your identity. And I feel even in the time that I have been a widow, that that is the case, that it used to be the only thing that people needed to know about me. And now I'm like, there are many other parts to me that you need to know. Need to know.
Need. What's our next terminology?
Our next terminology is anthropomorphic.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Your eyes.
Anyway,
Dead.
versus
Oh, a host of, I mean, people use so many terms that are not dead.
Passed
Passed
away,
away.
late spouse, late partner,
Yes, passed on. Yeah, there's a lot of
crossed over.
crossed over. That's the one I was trying to think of, crossed over. There are a lot of ways to say it that seem to be more gentle for people. And I really was surprised at how many people were uncomfortable with the word dead. Were you? Do you feel that way?
Do I feel uncomfortable or do I feel
Well,
surprised?
what do you, yeah, no, both. Answer
I
all the
think
questions.
okay, okay. I will answer all the questions and I will email you if I have problems.
Thank you.
So, I guess pre Scott dying, I
Hmm.
was aware that people had sensitivities to this and I adjusted accordingly. I personally have never had a problem with saying dead, like, or this person has died.
Right.
And it's interesting because, as many of you know, we have a group on Facebook, a private group for widows, and this topic has come up a few times. And it's very polarized. Some people are attracted to our group because we are pretty blunt in how we talk. We don't even think twice about it just because that's how we communicate, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, depending on the person, depending on where they are in their grief, and depending on their preference, they may hear what we say if we're blunt about it and feel like we've stabbed them in the heart,
Yeah.
even though it means the same thing.
Okay, but wait, let me stop you. Is it being blunt or is it being factual and accurate?
For me, I think it's factual, but
Have
they,
associated that word with a more painful response?
yeah, like there's one instance I'm thinking of where the word blunt was tied to our use of the word dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's
I
fact.
I was actually surprised at how many people, even for a long time after the passing of their spouse, that really did not like the word dead or died or death. It was too painful. They talked about it as being blunt or a slap in the face or a stab in the heart, all of those things. I thought more people would just be like, no, I mean, that is what happened. And I have kids, and in the grief counseling world, we are coached to use those terms because that is what has happened. Their body has died. And when you use words like passed away, crossed over, those are very confusing for kids who already don't understand the finality of death. And so when this topic came up, this is kind of funny, but I related it to how we talk about body parts and how there is a push to call body parts what they are and how it's sometimes really uncomfortable. We grew up kind of using not nicknames because but
Not the anatomical
correct,
things.
having little euphemisms for those things and how we're trying to use the correct anatomic term. And I feel like it's kind of the same when it comes to children, is that you have to call it what it is so that it's very clear, because their brains are weird and they make meanings because they're just processing and trying to understand the world around them. So I've always thought of it in terms of that. And also, since I'm a medical professional, it's like this is the term that we use. However, this was an interesting thing, and I have found myself doing this, is that I'm comfortable with using the words died or dead, but when I'm talking to somebody else and they ask what happened, then I'll say, oh, he passed away, because I want to soften the blow for them, which is stupid.
I think I do that too. I'm probably 50-50 on just saying it how it is. It depends on who I'm talking to.
Yeah. if
So
if it's somebody that I don't know and it comes up in the conversation, I don't typically say, "Oh, he died," because I don't want that like shock factor.
here's one thing that I've noticed myself saying. So somebody asked me at tennis a few weeks ago. They're like, "Oh, was that your son that you were here with the other day?" And I'm like, "Oh, first of all, that was not me because I wasn't here the other day.
Oh,
And it was not with
it's
a
like
kid." And
Was it your
but
dad?
instead of saying those two things, I just said, "Oh no, I don't have any kids. My husband died after a tonsillectomy."
You went right to the gut punch there.
Yep.
What was the reaction?
Oh, okay. Thought it was you. It was an
Oh,
old guy.
okay.
He's seen a
Oh,
lot. He's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think it's interesting to hear the different ways that people talk about it. And I'm not saying that people should be comfortable with one or the other. I can just say that in my experience, and especially with the children thing, that's how I feel comfortable, and I don't have any qualms, or it doesn't cause me any more pain to say the word dead than it does to say passed away. Or I read this series that took place in Botswana, and it was always they became late. My husband has
Oh,
become late.
well, he better hurry up.
He has not made it on time to anything in 2 years.
Man, that Jason. Here's
Mhm.
another thing that I've heard, and this was part of our discussion in our club, is sometimes when you use the more gentle terms, people don't understand what you're actually saying.
Mm,
And so it's like, oh, my husband passed away. And they're like, well, when will he be back from work? It's like, okay, you didn't get it. They rephrase it another way. And then finally, they just have to say, he died.
dead.
You need to cancel this order. And then they get it. So, so many experiences, so many different ways to do it. What's the
Do
right way?
you do you think it's one of those things that you can acclimate yourself to if you are uncomfortable with it? Do you think it's kind of like you can, they do exercises for people who have phobias
Oh,
where you
exposure therapy? Is that what
Yes.
this also goes along with life coaching? So your sister Shauna is gonna like be on my side with this.
Okay.
Everything is neutral that is a fact.
Okay.
You get to decide what you think about said fact.
Okay.
And that thought gives you the emotion. So I
Mhm.
could say, hey, Anita, Scott's dead. And you're just like, you don't even have a actual thought either way. It's neutral. And so you don't feel anything. But I could say, hey, Anita, remember when Jason died? And then your brain might go to a thought that's like, oh man, I remember when he died. And then you feel a feeling because of that. The actual word is neutral.
Yeah.
So I
It's
believe
interesting.
it's if somebody, not that this would be somebody's life goal to go and say they want to change their feelings and their thoughts about the word dead versus passed away, but if they did, it's absolutely possible. The brain is amazing, and you can basically create your own experience.
We are interested to hear what your preferences are. If you like, not like, because nobody likes to say that we're dead.
Prefer.
If you prefer to be more factual, or if you prefer to soften the blow, let us know. And also, I'm really interested to hear if there are other euphemisms for passed away, crossed over, like those that we don't know of.
Even though these are sometimes kind of controversial subjects among widows, it's really encouraging to see how people treat each other if they have an opinion that's opposite of
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And thank goodness that the people in our group are so amazing, because we're in some other groups, Anita, that are, it's
Not so.
like you're
A
a
little
piece of
bit.
meat thrown into like the Amazon River and the piranhas jump on you. It's very bad. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
So it's really nice to see people comment and say, I prefer passed away or I prefer dead. And nobody's judging anybody for what they think their own way.
Yeah. And the whole point of these conversations is just to open the conversation so that we can talk about it. And like I started out by saying, I was really surprised that other people had such strong opinions that were different than my own, because I assumed that my experience, until I thought about it, was the same as other people's experiences. So,
Also, one thing that I'm remembering is that we have a widow friend whose husband died a very violent death. And she said to us, there's no other word that describes how horrible this was and how final it was than the word, he's dead.
mhm.
To me, it's insulting to say he passed away. So it could be insulting no matter what. It just is dependent on the person.
Yeah.
It's very personal. So yeah,
Yes.
let us know what you guys think. What are some of your thoughts? There's no wrong answers. We support whatever works for you, and we would love to hear what you have to say about it. And if you hate us because we say dead, we're sorry. We're probably going to still say dead, but we support
Can
you.
I say you're dead to us if you hate us? Or is that going too far?
They might pass away from shock.
You're passed away to us if you don't appreciate us and hate us.
What do you guys think? Comment below.
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
Just two young widows trying to open the conversation and figure out, widow,
We
do
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.